All right, here we go. So we can go ahead and get going. We will have some trickling in. But welcome to Dauntless. Kind of the theme for 2022 for these calls is being bold, and the word dauntless actually means incapable of being subdued. And so just really a great goal for this year. And I am very excited about our guest today. We have Karen Jensen. And she is an amazing agent. You might have seen some of the accolades, some of the, she's top 1% producer in the nation, top 5% specifically in Colorado. So that's amazing. I know a ton of agents in Colorado. And so to be top 5% is a big deal. She has been in real estate. Is it 12? I have
years.
to memorize.
12.
Oh, it was. Oh, wow. Okay. I did. Yeah. I'm not a numbers person. So 12 years, and she's absolutely amazing. So Karen, I will kind of give the floor to you if you want to just give a little update, little summary about yourself.
Sure.
And some of the things we're going to talk about today.
Sure. All right. So my story is that I graduated in 1984. So you do the math. And my high school, I got my high school diploma then. And at 18 years old, I began my 11.5-year career in law enforcement, 6.5 years as a deputy sheriff in Denver. And then I met my husband, Stu, in 1988. And after a couple of years of being married, we decided to have children. And I became a stay-at-home mom of 4 boys for 15 years. So during that time, I had various jobs, right? Because although I'm at home, right, like I needed to do whatever it took to make ends meet as a single income family, right? So he worked at his job forever until just recently, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So I was a homeschool mom for a few years. I was an Avon rep, and I had over 50 regular customers. And so every other week I would deliver Avon to people, and I was actually fairly successful with that. I was a church secretary and custodian. I was the custodian of 2 post offices, and so literally did whatever it took, right? During that time, my husband and I also became investors, and we purchased 2 homes, not 1, but 2 homes in 2007. Does anybody remember what happened in 2007? Jen probably does. Yeah, that was awful, wasn't it? So it was about 2 months before the market fell. So we ended up with these 2 homes. We rented them out for a year, and then we sold them at a loss, and literally did not pay off that debt until 2018. So that tells you that sometimes even the best intentions don't always happen correctly, right? So, and then in 2010, Stu and I became real estate agents with Keller Williams, and when it was a true buyer's market, right? Because we were still in the downturn. There was probably 9 to 12 months of inventory. It was really a challenge, right? And Stu continued to stay at his corporate job in order for us to have a steady income for and good insurance, because we had 4 kids, so we needed insurance. So, and of course, at first, I, like every other person coming into real estate, knew that real estate was easy, right? Real estate's easy. Real estate's easy. Real estate is easy. And I'm going to tell you why I really believe that now. However, when it just didn't happen for me right away, and then I realized kind of that the market was going to be hard, and it was going to be slow, and it was going to take me a really long time to get clients. What do you think happened? It was slow. Okay. It was hard, and it took me a long time to get clients. Mindset is key in your life and in your career. Mike is a really great example of how somebody came in and just sort of realized that he didn't have to suffer. Really, real estate agents, we don't have to suffer, right? Like, there's business out there for everybody. Go out and get the business, right? And we're going to talk some about how to be more bold in your goals. Because that for me was the turning point for me. You know, when I got into real estate, I'm going to tell you, I took a lot of training courses, and because it was so hard, and because it was so slow, and because it was going to take me so long to get clients, I ended up working for another agent who did property management. So my first year of real estate, I did 2 deals. And then the next year I did 4 deals. And then the next year I did 6 deals. And then the next year I did 8 deals, right? And then I did 10. And then I went back to 8. And I'm thinking, what's going on, right? Well, that's at a time when I really, I actually started with working for a team. I didn't join them. I was working for a team. We're called the Impact Team, and they are truly successful agents. The top 3 agents do over 500,000 GCI or more a year. So they were truly top agents, right? And I started working for them, doing their CRM maintenance and doing some other jobs for them. And what they told me is, you don't have to join the team. Whatever you do for us, whatever we tell you to do for us, that's what you do, right? So that's exactly what I did. Whatever they did, if they sent out emails to do this, that's what I did. They allowed me to even use their any of their events, so I could invite my clients to their events, and it was fun. They didn't care, right? They're like, this is what you do. We invite clients to events. You invite your clients to our events. We do this, you do that. We make these 5 calls a day. You make these 5 calls a day. And that's exactly what I did. And in that time period, I just in that first year of just working with them and not for them and not with them, I went from 8 deals to 12 deals. And then the following year, when I officially joined them, my business doubled. I went from 12 deals to 24 deals. And then the next year, the following year, I did 28 deals. So, and now I consistently close between 20 and 30 deals a year. So it's, you know, I really just feel like once I kind of figured out, you know, we all know that we need goals, right? Like that's so important. And we all have goals, and I didn't buy into them, right? Like you can know it until you buy into something, you don't do it. So there was a time that I finally realized that I could be successful, right? So when I did those 8 to 12 deals and the 12 to 24 deals, that's how I really knew that goals were super important, right? Because that's what the leaders of this team were saying. Like, so I really started feeling like when I heard about goals, obviously, when I started in real estate. I'll be honest, I grew up in a blue collar family. We didn't really have goals. Our biggest goal was to maybe retire someday. And that wasn't, I'm not even sure that's a true goal, right? At the time. I know my dad told me I wanted to get a job in high school. And my dad told me, don't work now. You're going to have to work for the rest of your life. And, you know, I really realized a really sad thing a couple of days ago. My dad passed away in 2019 this month. And it just dawned on me, my dad worked for the rest of his life. He literally had to retire on his deathbed. Now, how sad was that, right? And I had somehow clicked in me earlier than that I wouldn't have to do that. I don't have to do that. He did that. That was his choice. And he literally made the choice all the way to the end of his life. That's not going to be me. I mean, will I work for the rest of my life? Maybe. Is it going to be my choice? Yes. Right. So that's the true goal in that. So I had a really good friend. Her name was Lisa Case. When I first started in the business, she was a business mentor and coach. And she taught me the very first thing that I learned about goals, or one of the very first things, other than, what Keller Williams teaches you. They teach you a lot about goals. I'm going to tell you, this was like the meat and potatoes of it for me. She told me to write down my goals. Now, you know how scary that is, right? Because once you write down your goals, you are stating to the top of your lungs that these are your goals. And if you don't make them, then you're wrong at the top of your voice. So I'm going to tell you that that's a myth, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. So she literally told me to write down my goals, to laminate them, and to carry them around with me. So for many years, I started to write down my goals and carry them around with me. I did not laminate them. Once I started to laminate them in 2018, this is sort of what it looks like. I don't know if you can see it. Oh, see if I can. No, it's going to black out because of my thing. So there we go. Now I got it kind of sideways. So I laminated them. I had on here that my income, I wanted 14,000 a month. I wanted 30 closings. I wanted to cap by September of 2018. I ended up with 28 closings that year. You'll see my little hash marks there kind of in here. And then I actually capped by June. I think at the end of July, I paid off all that debt that I had from 2007. So that was like a big thing, right? I just have all these things on here. Things like I wanted to lose 10 pounds. I wanted to work out 3 times a week. I wanted to go on 4 vacations. I think that year I went on 3. Nope, I went on 4. I had 5 written down. I went on 4. So these were super important things for me, right? And every time that I would go on a doctor's appointment, or I would be sitting waiting for my oil to be changed or whatever, I would pull out my goals list and I would review them. And I would bring out a dry erase marker, wet erase marker, and I would mark down what I have achieved or what I had not achieved, right? Or what I needed to do next in order to achieve the next goal. So that was a huge change for me and transformation for me in my goals. A second thing that was really important for me to believe in goals is I listened to a podcast by Zig Ziglar. Does everyone who know who Zig Ziglar is? So he's a huge mentor and coach. He's old school. He's passed away a couple of years ago. However, you can't hardly be in this business and not know who he is. And if you don't, you need to look him up. So I came across this podcast from him called Biscuit, Fleas, and Pump Handles, which you can find on Audible. And I think you can probably also find on zigziglar.com, I'm guessing, or on Ziglar.com. That was a huge change for me. Ziglar is a huge proponent of goals, and mindset. And that actually was super huge for me. I still listen to it. I listened to it just a few days ago. I listen to it every January, every day for the first month in January. And then I listen to it once a month after that, because it continues to allow me to go forward and remember why it's so important, why goals are so important, right? And then the third thing is my team, which is the impact team. The dynamics of that, we realize that you are the culmination of the 5 people that you hang around with the most, right? So our team is big on goals, and therefore I became big on goals. When I first came to this team and they started having me do my goals in maybe a little more structured way, that was huge for me as well, right? So that taught me to think through not only personal business goals, but personal goals, right? Like I'm to the age now that my goal is to retire at some point, or at least to slow down enough to be able to relax and not have to work quite so hard, right? when I was younger, I loved working and I wanted to work all the time, and that was great for me, right? And now I know some young people who don't want to work all the time. In fact, one of the guys on our team, his goal was to go on a 12-month hiatus, and they were just going to go from country to country to country and live. And they made it 8 months, and then they had a terrible accident in the family, and so they came home. However, he had it all planned out. He had made enough money the previous year to be able to do that, and he set up his, I mean, he made more money that year literally being gone than he did when he was there. So that speaks to the team members that we have that stepped up for him. And also he was still making his calls and doing the right things while he was gone, right? You can't just leave your business 100%. You can leave it 90%. And the other, it's the 80-20 rule, the Pareto rule, where you do your 20%, you're going to make it. So, and once I learned that was huge for me. And I always try to think of goals as a roadmap, right? So it's a roadmap to get to what you want to accomplish in your life. So like Zig Ziglar says, you can't hit a target you don't have, right? So I don't know if you remember when you got your license, or if you're older and you have kids, and when they got their license and you'd be like, hey, can you drive? Oh, I know this is a true story about Jordy for sure. Can you drive me over to the mall? Right? Jordy, you tell us, how did that work for you when your parents would tell you to drive you or drive somewhere, or they would tell you, hey, how do we get somewhere? Did that work for you?
No, I'm the worst. I can barely operate with Google Maps. Like, I can't remember. I actually literally have to drive a place like 30 times to remember how to get there. My brain does not work that way.
Yeah, you and Stu.
Yeah,
I love it. You and Stu. Yeah. So I mean, kids, that their goal is, when they're in the seat of the car, is either they're looking at their phone now, or they're reading. I know your nose was in a book. 100%. Yeah. I knew that. Yeah. So, their goal was to get there. It wasn't your mechanism to get there, right? So when it was your turn to be your mechanism to get there, you had no idea how to do that, because it wasn't you, right? So if you don't have a way to, once you got Google Maps, you can make it, right? Yep. So that's your roadmap. You've made it, right? So that's why goals are so important, right? Like, so I always feel like you have to have a huge goal. You have to have your end goal, right? Like, my goal is a big goal because it's retirement and I want to be on the beach. That's my goal. So I have my goal is actually a lot shorter term away, right? Like, everybody's goal is probably sort of something like that in the end. But when you're 30, that's different than when you're 50 or 60, right? So like, maybe for some of you, you have kids and your biggest goal is to get them out of the house, or maybe your biggest goal is to get through this year, right? Get them through this next year. That's what's important, right? And how do you get there is super important. So then you start with the last step and you start working your way back and figuring out, okay, I want this. And so what do I have to do before that to get to that? And then what do I have to do before that to get to that? And what do I have to do before that to get that, right? That's your roadmap, right? And some things are going to be big, and some things are going to be small things, and some things are going to be daily things. So they're super minute. So I think one of the biggest things that we do, though, is that we play small. So when I first started out on my goals with my team, is I wanted to play small, right? So I had just finished getting 12 closings in that year. And I think I wanted to do 18, maybe 20. I think maybe I wanted to do 20. And the leader of our team's like, are you kidding me? Are you going to be happy with 20? I'm like, it's 20, like, it's more than 12. I guess it's fine. And he's like, man, really? He's like, why do you not go for bigger? Why are you playing small? well, I finally realized that I was only putting down goals that I knew that I could hit, right? I was not being bold in my goals. I didn't want to be wrong at the top of my lungs when I didn't hit it, right? So then I just started thinking that through, and I'm not kidding you, just thinking of it now sort of still makes me sweat, right? Like they're like, okay, what's a really bold goal? And my husband Stu says, I think it should be 30. And I'm like, no, are you kidding me? And he says, yeah. And so then Dan, who's the leader of our team, says, Karen, like, if you hit 30, what does that mean? And I'm like, well, that would be huge, right? That would be a huge for our family. I would be able to pay off some debt, all of our debt. We'd be able to, go on to the next portion of our life and be able to start investing in some more properties and, just that kind of thing. And I just kind of hooked on the dream, right? Hooked on the dream. And then he's like, well, still sweating, right? And he's like, well, what if you only hit 28? Is that okay? And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, 28's okay. Well, what if you only hit 25? Is that okay? I'm like, well, I guess that would be okay, right? And then he's like, well, what if you hit 20? I'm like, yeah, no, that's not okay now. All of a sudden that was not okay to me, right? And so I wrote down 30, and then I looked at it every day, and then I hit 28 and I was okay. I was okay. Like that's going bold. So I feel like a lot of times we just don't know, it's a disservice, right? So by being bold in your goals, it's a disservice to allow yourself to underachieve. So I just always say, when you write down your goals or say them out loud and you don't hit them, you might be wrong at the top of your lungs. However, you at least have a roadmap to get there. And then you're not wrong, no matter what happens. So what happens, and this is a really good example. Like my dad passed away in 2019. I had a goal of, I don't have it here, I think I had a goal also of 30 that year as well. However, when he got sick in February, March of that year, my whole world stops, right? So I have to stop, take care of my mom, do all this. I think ended up squeaking out probably 20 closings that year, which wasn't 30. And was I okay? Yes, right? Like, because there's other things that are going to factor in as you're figuring out your goals, and they're going to change. So, that's what's huge about that. I don't know.
That story you just mentioned, I feel like it relates to a question that Joe just asked. Is it okay to downshift on the curve, is what he said. So that seems to me kind of like a situation where that absolutely applies.
Absolutely. As long as you're downshifting for the correct reasons, Joe, right? Like if you're just downshifting because you don't want to work, that's one thing, right?
Hey, give the credit where credit's due. That was Jen Frost, not
Oh, okay.
No,
Thanks,
no big deal. It's honestly,
she's like, that's all right. She's
Love
like,
it,
it's all our
Jen.
questions. So
it's our answer. You know what I mean? When we're masterminding like this, everyone's thinking these things. That's what I love about the chat box. So thank y'all for doing that. And thanks for letting me jump in here. And what you're saying today has encouraged me so much. I didn't know what to expect. I just knew Jordan, anything she's producing is going to be phenomenal. And I am so excited about what you're saying. So thank you so much.
it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. I'm hoping that some of you, especially the newer agents, learn from mistakes, right? Like when we're kids, sometimes the kids have to go through the mistake to learn it, right? Like we don't want them to learn it. We attempt to guide them around it, and they still have to just plow through it to learn it. We're adults now. We don't have to do that. Don't do that. Learn from my mistakes and just get up in there and do the right things, so yeah. Any other questions? Any other questions?
I don't see any other in the chat box unless did I miss one from someone before I ask one? Does anybody have any? I have one of them you've actually a few of them you've already answered, but what are some other ways you hold yourself accountable to the goals, whether it's with someone or in a group or anything like that?
Sure. Okay, so the years that I've been most successful, I've had multiple accountability partners. I call them accountability partners, right? With a quote, because although I feel like I'm accountable, I'm really not accountable to anybody but me, right? However, it's always good to talk it over with someone else because you hate to fail in front of someone else, right? So it's easier. So there was a time that I probably had 3 or 4 accountability partners. I am now currently involved in a mastermind group that in which there's 5 of us. We've been together for over 4 years, I think now. The 6 of us, there's 6 of us actually, because one of them's a lender, and then there's 5 other agents. We're all from different agencies. We all have different levels of experience, and we all do different levels of business. So it's really been amazing to be able to meet with these people. We meet every other week in person, and then we meet, we did a quick text just before we came on. It was our time to text in and just tell how our goals were going for the week. So we're super accountable to one another. And then within our team, we also have a huge goal team as well. So we have goal setting in the beginning, and then there's several of us who are like goal mentors to help the others on the team to help pull them up. So yeah. And what was that question? I saw a question come up.
Oh yes. So Belinda asked, do you give yourself anything for accomplishing these bold goals? And then Belinda, why don't you read that last one and kind of clarify what you mean? I think I know what you mean though, but unmute yourself and.
It took a minute to unmute. What I was saying was like a giving tree for meeting said goals, whether to yourself or to others. Like say you accomplish so much and you give a percentage to a charity, or you give an office party to who's under you or who's helping you or whatever, even for yourself, a treat at the spa. I mean, just multiple ways of doing it.
Sure. Those are really great ways. I think what you have to decide first is, are you driven by pain or are you driven by pleasure, right? Some people are driven by pain. In other words, they like to hurt a little bit before they really learn the lesson, or they're driven by pain as in maybe they're 3 months behind on their bills, right? And they need to catch up. And so they need a closing. So they'll hurry up and go out and get a closing, right? That's pain driven. Or some people are pleasure driven. So maybe you want the day at the spa, or maybe you want to buy that new outfit, right? I quickly learned that I am pleasure driven. I prefer to go on a vacation any day. That's what my goals are all the time. So as soon as we get up, get enough closings, I'm like, well, it's time for a vacation. Let's go. And then every time, never fails, right? When you're on vacation, you get business. So I try to do 4 of them a year. Then that way I'm busy all the time. It's awesome. It's awesome. Yeah. So those are really great ideas too. I mean, ways to not only bring pleasure to yourself, but to other people who may have backed you or helped you. That's really awesome. That's such a great way to give back to others who've given to you. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm definitely pleasure driven as well. Something my mom's mom told me she had no idea that I would someday relate it to my business, but she would say, here, Jordan, use the fine china. I don't care if it breaks. Life is meant for living, and so that kind of put me in the mindset where I just want to, really fully enjoy my family, those vacations, little things. It's more than just the thing you're doing. It's like just living life to its full potential. And so I am definitely driven that way. So that's how I am too.
And we also, now we have lots of fine china. So
Nice.
Yeah.
Break away.
And I'm sure it gets broken a lot. I know your kids.
Oh yeah.
Awesome. I love it.
Hey, can I add a creative thought here? I'm actually doing a women's event this week where I have literally saved almost every piece of beautiful china that I've broken. And since I've come from an event background with 2 venues in Round Rock and Austin, I have a ton of broken, beautiful china. So I have literally pulled it all together to do this creative installation about how, if we can reassemble all these beautiful pieces into something not exactly the way it was before, but equally as beautiful, is it okay? So I'm doing that this week. So thank you for saying that. And this is so inspirational. So I know that's uber creative, but I just said it. So I'm going to show y'all some pieces next week that we did. Okay.
Oh, that's
Oh,
amazing.
I can't wait
Jen.
to see that.
That's amazing, Jen.
Cool.
That is so cool. That is so cool.
Yep.
So
Exactly. I'm
I mean-
curious if anyone on this call is pain driven, because that's not how I operate, and there's
I'd love to
nothing
know.
wrong with it. I'm very curious about that.
I'm both, actually. I go, I have seasons where I know that it's no pain, no gain. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And then I kind of catch my breath and press into, keeping it in that rewards oriented where I can do all of those things. So I'm looking forward to leaving the pain behind, So
I agree. Yeah. Once we paid off all that debt that we have, that was so freeing. That finally allowed me to not be pain driven. It was awesome. That's for sure.
thank you for being ahead on the journey. I'll be touching base with you
Oh,
soon.
I don't know if I'm ahead on it. I'm just finally I was treading for a long time. I finally feel like I'm swimming. So
That's so cool. That's so awesome.
appreciate that.
That's
I
awesome.
appreciate that.
Yeah, I was trying to think of some alternatives to if laminating out the goals. Like I was trying to think like, well, maybe I wouldn't want everyone seeing it, but maybe like your home screen on your phone, to where every time you open your phone, you see those things, or like, the background on your computer, or, I'm going to kind of play around with that because I really like that. I don't want to lose those goals. And that can happen.
Stu puts his on his phone, and I've done mine on my phone before. I've just really found that I like writing on mine. So
That's awesome.
I don't know. It keeps me more, I think tactile. It's tactile. And I probably like that, so it's a personal thing. So, I want to talk, if we still have a few minutes, I wanted to talk a little bit about long-term goals versus short-term goals. We talked some about how, as you look further in your life, right, you, like where I am, I'm looking more at being at retirement, and how important it is for everyone to have a vision statement, right? So you want to think out as far as you can and take as much time as possible to write out a vision statement. I cannot tell you how important that became to me this last year. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with, it's called the 12-week year. I'll see if I can get it on there. 12-week year. Yeah, there it is. It's by Brian P. Morgan and Michael Lennington. It actually, what it does is, so it helps you to guide you through like how to write a vision statement, then how to figure out your goals long term, and then how to figure out what you're going to do this year, and then what you're going to do in the next 12 weeks. Right? Because whenever you're looking at goals in a 12-week year, or in a 12-month year, you're looking at it, and sometimes, I don't know about you, I found myself doing this. I start looking and I get to about October and November, and I'm really supposed to start thinking about next year's goals. And then I'm looking at this year's goals and I'm sort of thinking, oh my gosh, I just have not hit this and this and this and this and this. So then I crank up, that's the pain driven in me, right? That's the portion of pain I'm cranking up to figure out how I'm going to finish out my goals for this year. Well, the 12-week year helps you kind of bind that down to what you need to do in this 12 weeks in order to get your 12-month goals. And then the next 12 weeks get you a little closer in what I need to do, and the next 12 weeks get you a little closer. So that's been really a huge, that's something that our mastermind group has been working on this past, I'm going to say 24 weeks, really 36 weeks. We laugh. It took us 12 weeks to get ready to do our 12 weeks. And then we started our 12 weeks, because we're normal human beings, right? We always want to think that we have our stuff together just because we're in a mastermind, and we don't always have our stuff together because we're human beings and we have lives, and that's just sort of the way life happens. So, as you look out long-term, you just need to start thinking on, like I said before, back, what do I do before that? And what's the step before that? And what's the step before that? Well, this breaks it down into a 12-week step. So for me, I really love that. It was super helpful for me to have my vision statement and to have that. And I just want to speak briefly about what makes a goals effective, right? So number one, they have to be specific. It's do or do not. There is no try. Right. So like we were talking in our mastermind a couple of weeks ago, and she's like, well, what do you want to do these next 12 weeks? And Felicia's like, well, I don't know if I want to do 19 or if I want to do 24 million. Well, which one is it? Like, it's not one or the other. You need to decide. So she's like, okay, you're right. She's 24 years in the business, right? And she still knows this stuff. It's not that she doesn't know it, right? We all know it. Sometimes that's a great way to have accountability with someone, right? Like, be specific. The second one is it has to be measurable. It might be measurable by time. Like maybe I want to run a half marathon and I want it done by this time, in this time period, right? That's a goal. Maybe it's a sales volume. Is it sales by number of sold, or is it by however many million you want? Is it by GCI, right? Is it by volume? So that's it. Is it by date? Do you need something done by a date? Is it done by pounds? Maybe you're losing some weight, or maybe you're gaining some muscle. I don't know, whatever that is. And then number three, it has to be achievable. So, here's a good one. I'll never win the 100-meter dash. I'm not a fast runner. I'll never do that. It's not achievable. That's not a goal. That's a wish or a dream, right? So that's the difference. It has to be relevant, right? So I might have a personal goal to run a half marathon, and I might also have a goal to win a hot dog eating championship. Is that really going to happen, right? Like, one does not mesh with the other. It's not relevant. So I'm going to have to figure out which one I really want and go with that. And then number five, it has to be time sensitive. You have to have an ending time, or it's an ambiguous goal. So I do recommend the 12-week year. That's a personal thing. I recommend anything from Zig Ziglar, anything. And I just really feel like anything that you want to use, right? As long as you use it, it's sort of like your CRM, right? If you don't use it, you'll never get it done. So anyway, do you have any other questions for me, Jordy?
Let's see if I missed any. Everyone's making notes and
Yeah, I see
already
that.
ordered one of the books. I love
Now get with a partner and do it with someone. I really encourage you to do that. You know, maybe connect with someone on here, connect with someone in your office, or connect with someone, better yet, connect with someone who's not in your office, someone you don't know. And it's harder to lie to somebody you don't know.
That's true.
Yeah, because you want to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so many times, you know, it's so uncomfortable is one of the reasons that we don't do things. And this way, sometimes you just got to do it. You just have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Exactly.
for sure.
Would you be open to sharing just some of your personal goals, personal or professional, for the remainder of 2022?
Sure. So my next 12-week goal, I'll go with that to start with. My next 12-week goal is to figure out all the nuances of and hire a virtual assistant. So I found that I have so many little things. I had hoped that my husband, which this is like, okay, so this is like a huge thing. My husband finally got to quit his corporate job, and last June he came full-time real estate with me. So, which was amazing and scary, right? And our insurance sucks. So that's just all there is to that. Well, you know, right? Yeah. So we started doing that, and so I thought I could rely on him a little more for some things, and I've just realized that he just doesn't have the skills for it, right? And that's okay. It's totally fine. I just have to find someone to cover me on a lot of things. I already have a transaction coordinator, which I've had for I think back once I started having like 6 deals a year, or 4 or 5 or 6 at a time, then I just moved over to a transaction coordinator. So I'm very lazy about that now. I used to know all what was going on, and now I'm like, it's just getting done. I just have to make sure the dates are hit. I'm cool. So our goal this year is also 30 closings. So, and I think honestly, we're probably 10 in. So, and we're about, I guess, a third into the year. So I think we're there. I've got like 5 listings coming up. I don't know about the rest of you. It's sort of slowing down in our neck of the woods a little bit. Anything under like 500,000 is sort of slowing down. I do have a listing that just went up, and I have 10 offers on it, which when we get off, that's what I have to go through as soon as we're done. So, which is awesome. And then I have 1.2 million, which is super slow. So, which is good. So we have 30 closings. Honestly, my goal is to lose another 5 pounds before we go on vacation at the end of this month. So I guess I better get on that. We're on the 9th. And we're going on a cruise. Has been,
hey, I have some suggestions on the wanting to decrease inflammation and stuff like that, if you're interested. And really, it's just celery juice every morning, 30 minutes before you eat anything, and it heals the gut. And so you're going to find that all of the things, that joints and skin and everything that you know, when you start producing and you're working so hard, your body goes through something, you know. So this helps with the inflammation. And then I've got a couple of other ideas too.
All right, well,
for you.
That's awesome. Well, we'll connect afterwards. I would love to do that, Jen. I would love to do that.
I'm excited that you'd love to do that. And
yeah, I would. So put your contact info in there, or whatever I can
do.
Jordy
Right,
Jordy will hook me up. Jordy will hook me up.
Absolutely.
I love it.
I
love it.
Jordy.
I love it.
Wealth of knowledge. I've known her for years. So awesome.
Yeah. Awesome.
So fun.
Awesome.
I do, before we tell everyone how we know each other, I just, you know, this one, it does relate to goals indirectly, but you know, you got licensed just in time for the recession, right?
Yeah.
And then now it's like the, you know, and then you were in the, you know, buyer's market. So now we're flip-flopped. We're in like a crazy seller's market still, even though it's, you know.
Oh yes. And I feel like we're going to be in that for quite some time. And let me tell you why. Even though we're probably headed into a recession, which it's on the forefront, we're probably actually considered a couple of months into it. The average recession lasts probably 18 months. They can go up to 3 years. Obviously, back in 2007, that was more true. So most recessions last about 18 months. Really crazy when you look down at the sales. Sales don't change during that time period. People still need to move. People still need to buy, and so you'll find that, right? Here's the issue. And maybe it's a great one, right? A lot of agents who are awful or who just want easy are going to be gone. So that's probably going to help us a little bit. However, you just have to look at it as there's still business out there, and how much of it are you going to get? So that's why it's so important to follow up with your clients. Jordy and I talked about this, how it's, you're sitting in a restaurant and you hear behind you, the person says, I need to sell my house. And how bold are you going to be to turn around and say, hey, I'd love to be able to help you with that, and here's my card and what's the address? I'm happy to do a free, review on that and find out kind of what it might sell for. So that's so important to ramp up your business. And I'm going to say 80% of my business is past client or past client referrals. I've been in the business 12 years, right? So that's easy for me to say. I'm going to tell you, it took me a long time to get to that. It probably took me 3 times longer than it should have, right? Because I'm going to tell you, when I first started, I sent out a letter to everyone telling them that I was a real estate agent, and that was all I probably ever did. I might have followed up with 1 phone call. Do you know how many times people, and it still happens, right? People call and be like, oh, I totally forgot you were an agent. I just sold my house. I totally forgot you were an agent. Well, of course you did, and whatever. And whose fault is it? Mine, right? It's always mine. It's not theirs. I'm not mad at them. I don't get mad at them when they remember and they still use someone else. That's their choice and their loss, because I'm always going to be the person to fight for them the most and put their needs first every time. And I found that sometimes they went with someone else and they would tell me the story, and I just thought that wouldn't have happened if that was with me. It just wouldn't have, right? So I appreciate that. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Very good point.
Thanks. So I mean, the recession is coming, right? There's business. Stay in the business. Work it.
Yep.
Work it. Yeah.
Exactly.
I want to see your New Balance sneakers.
You better talking to Mike. His new barbecue sneakers.
Oh, nice.
New barbecue, you're changing the face of New Balance. I promise you are. It's so cool.
I can actually get them.
He went with some Airbound. What are they called?
Oh, he's gonna show
Clearly,
us.
I buy heels
Actually,
sneakers.
My new shoes just came in the mail right now. I'm about to open
you
them.
unbox
Model them.
The
Put
shoe
them
reveal
on.
party.
Please
Yeah, we want to
unbox
see those
them.
before the end.
Reveal party.
You
Okay,
better
put 'em
do
on
that
right
before the
now.
end. Yeah, for
Go
sure.
get up there with your gimbal.
Too funny.
All right. So, do we have any guesses on how Karen and I are related? And by the way, when anyone ever says someone's being a Karen, we just assume it's a compliment, because this Karen right here
It's
is
me.
pretty amazing,
He's the
and
exception to the rule.
it's a compliment.
All right. Well, you guys are thinking about it. I'm gonna give you one last thought. Is that all right?
Yes.
Before you, so think really hard. Okay, so we know that the biggest reason that people don't want to make goals is because they'll have to step out of their comfort zone. It's important actions are often the uncomfortable ones. The number one thing that you will have to sacrifice to be great and to achieve what you're capable of and to execute your plans is your comfort. So always get out of your comfort zone. When people say it, they mean it. This is why. That's where you grow.
I love it.
All right. How do we know each other?
All right. Does anyone have a guess? I just want to see if anyone gets it.
I'm gonna say EXP Realty.
Shocking. She's not with EXP.
I'm not with XP.
I know.
That was just my big guess.
I know.
I've not
That is a really
researched
good
anyone.
guess.
Seriously, I
Yeah,
will
so
be better.
not yet. She will be eventually.
So, yeah.
I'm foretelling the future, people.
Yeah, there you
All
go.
right. Well, you guys attempt to manifest that. I'm good with that.
Oh,
Like, if
yeah.
you want to manifest it, I'm good.
We're in
I'll
trouble now.
manifest what I manifest.
It's in my 12-week goals. So
Is it?
Awesome. Me
Nice.
too.
Nice. Well, you
For
better
you,
get on
for
that.
you.
It's so funny. We actually, I mean, I found real estate, you know, a kind of a different way, like time in my life. It was so crazy, but my dad is her sister, so she is my aunt.
Wow.
And
You know what?
I
can see that.
I know. Yeah, we have similar eyes. She has glasses on, but I
Me
saw a
too.
picture of her mom, my
Oh
grandma.
my gosh, I cannot wait to do a photo shoot with y'all. Seriously. Do you know that I was just in Colorado? And I didn't have a chance to tell you because I didn't know I was going until the very last minute.
Nice.
But I was in Denver, and the people I was connecting with were in Colorado Springs. So which part of Colorado?
That's awesome.
Which part
That's
of Colorado
awesome.
are you in?
I'm in Brighton. It's about 20 miles north of Denver. So I work the Denver metro area, and then north of that, like all the way up to Fort Collins. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
did some really cool downtown lifestyle.
yeah, it's really beautiful
Walked
down there.
around. It was so gorgeous.
Yeah, it's beautiful down
I
there.
was wrong.
It really is. It
But
really
like
is.
when she mentioned, oh, I'll try to be on your Zoom next week. I missed this week because I, you know, had an engagement. I was like, I want you to be my guest because I know you're an amazing agent. I was like, so it just worked out so perfectly. And yeah, so she is my aunt and she's awesome. So if you guys need an agent in Colorado, if it's not her area, she'll at least know
I'll know who.
someone. But yeah, so you all have a referral connection now.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
I appreciate you, Jordan. I really do. And you too, Mike. You know,
Yeah,
love you.
Mike's
I love you. He's on.
all right, these are my new closing shoes.
Oh,
got
those
the
are
fancy
pretty.
ones.
They're good.
New closing
They'll
shoes.
get you.
They're very cool.
Thank you.
Don't wear them out in the grass barbecuing.
Those are non-grillers.
Those are non-grillers.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, we'll be
keep those
grilling in those.
pristine.
All
Oh
right.
my gosh.
Bye, guys. Thanks again.
Yes, a
Thank
lot of
you.
people, saying thank you in the chat. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on today, Aunt Karen. I can
Yay.
call you.
My niece, I love you.
And thank you for joining everyone. Love you, Aunt Karen. And
Love
I
you
will have
too. Bye, everyone.
Text me so we can chat. I want to hear
Okay.
more.
I'll give her
Okay.
your number.
Bye.
Bye.